Hi, this is Ina Langerman from violin.live, helping you along your musical journey. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. This video is for those of you who are practicing your 3-octave scales, either from the Flesch or Ivan Galamian scale systems. I want to talk about how to practice the process of acceleration. This is something that can be challenging, and it's very common to hit a brick wall in the process. And for those of you who are maybe doing this for the first time ever, where you start with 1 note per bow, then 2 notes per bow, and so on, and then the goal is to make it to 24 or maybe even 48 per bow, how to make this a little bit more manageable, and what are some common pitfalls that we run into. And actually I want to talk about that because a lot of these pitfalls that prevent us from being able to do them quickly, like 16 or 24 notes per bow, has to do with how we are practicing the scale when it's still slow. Now, for those of you who aren't sure what I'm talking about, here's an example of the G major scale in acceleration. So I'm going to be setting my metronome to 40, and each bow is going to get 2 clicks always. So it starts with 1 note per click, then 2 notes per click, and so on. Turn up the metronome. Now the Galamian turn at the beginning and the end of the scale, which is at the beginning and the end of each major and minor scale. The reason for that is so that the total amount of notes ascending and descending excluding the final tonic. When you get to the end, the total will be 48, and this is because it's going to become divisible by 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, and 24. Very often, students who have already learned the 3 octave scales and are now working on acceleration for the first time especially, they're going to run into a problem, especially when going past slurring 4 notes per bow. The biggest reason why there is this plateau has to do with how the scale is being practiced when it's slow. So some of the most common problems, some of the most common things that are overlooked when playing the scale slowly is, number one, first and foremost, is preparing the fingers in advance. It's so important that the elbow, the fingers, and also the string crossings are being prepared in advance. So for example, here's what I see commonly students do. Do you see a problem with that? So I put in the finger at the very last second, but instead we want to prepare the fingers in the correct shape and around the correct place. So for example, if I'm playing, my second finger is already, so everything flows smoothly like this. Not, this is wrong, because it's not going to help you when we have to accelerate. The next problem is when we have to string cross. So let's say you're using the 4th finger. Right here, the way you put on the pinky. So to make it as smooth as possible when you accelerate, we have to clear the D string. I would practice actually clearing D string, and also I would practice being able to do that. We need to do this when we accelerate, as close to this as possible, or at least get our hand into this shape. We have to get into this shape a little bit sooner. When we do this slowly, we have to imagine how we're going to do it when it's faster. So the fingers are preparing. And here, at the end of this note, if I'm doing pinky, or if you're doing D string, then you would do it in the previous note, my right elbow needs to prepare for the new string. And also, the first finger needs to be down by now. So it creates a smooth connection between D and E. Next, shifts. The best way to practice shifts when it's slow is to match the bow speed to the speed of the shift. So try to get both hands to move in a similar manner, okay? And this is without the metronome, this is just to coordinate. So notice how I moved very slowly. Also, another common error is shifting at the wrong time with regards to where you are on the bow. The general rule of thumb is shift during the old bow. So what I mean is, let's say the C is on a down bow. The shift would happen on this down bow. See, at the end of the down bow, this is where the shift happens. Once the finger is ready, that's when you switch to the up bow. So it's not the other way around. It's not, we're not going to do that. It's not going to work later. Of course, also practice the shifts forward and backwards in a slur. And notice how I'm trying to match the speed of the left and right hand. So now also one more thing is when you shift to 5th position or higher, so let's say on the 2nd shift in G major scale, we need to, in advance, we have to get our elbow a little bit more under the instrument. So when we play the scale fast, we have to do it actually earlier, maybe even during the G on the A string. I would actually already stay kind of in this formation. But let's say you're just practicing right here. This is not good because this stayed the same. It's fine for the note C, but my G, my F sharp and G, they're never going to reach like this. Right here during the end of this bow. The 2nd finger is an excellent finger for pivoting the hand shape, and you can find all kinds of angles around this finger, which is why it's so useful. A lot of times in these scales, the shifts happen after the 2nd finger, especially on the way up. So we prepare first. So then you practice. Okay. Now, of course, I cannot make this video without addressing the problem with downward shifts. In G major, it's not so bad, but when you play D major scale, for example, and gets pretty high, when it gets pretty high up there, if we do the Galamian fingering, we have to do 4-4-3-2-1 and 3-2-1-3-2-1. So this problem. So how to practice this? So it's important to practice with a guide note. The guide note will, in this case, will go down a perfect 4th. And then after that, you get the other fingers into formation. So once you play the guide note, right away, in this case, I'm doing D major here, there are whole steps between the next 3 notes. One of the reasons this fingering is common on descending scales 3-2-1, 3-2-1 is because essentially we're trying to shift on half steps as much as possible because they're smaller on the fingerboard and it's easier to do like a finger exchange. Of course, when we play it fast, we're not going to completely do this guide note, but the reason we practice with the guide note is 1, so we know where we are on the fingerboard, and 2, which is the most important, I think, is to get all the fingers right away into the formation that we are going to need. So, for example, so again, D major scale coming down. So both times, the 3 fingers, they create whole steps. So it's super, super important when you do it slowly to first practice like this. If you don't practice it like this, it's not going to help you when you accelerate. Finally, one more thing about slow practice is be careful about the shape of your fingers. Don't put them down flat like this. When we play fast, if you put your hand up against a surface to go quickly like this with fingers, we need them to be where? Right on the finger pads. Like this is not going to help, all right? All right, so now we have to go on and talk about the next challenge, and that is when you start accelerating, finally, it's keeping track of the amount of notes per bow. You won't believe how many students get confused how many notes they have played per bow, and they don't realize, like they start with 4, and then suddenly they're doing 6 or 8, and they're not aware that it's happening. And so one reason for this confusion is not being aware of which note will fall on the beat. Also, so I know we have these scale books, right? We have the Galamian scale book, the Flesch scale book, or if you're using Barbara Barber, which is a great book, I think. Guys, please practice your scales from memory. I know it's written out, but learn the finger pattern and get away from the music. It's not gonna help you keep track, especially, for example, in the Barbara Barber book. It's organized very well, but the notes, they are written out in groups of 3. that can make it very simple for playing 3 notes per bow or 6 notes per bow, but when grouping 4 or 8, it's confusing to have that visual. I really recommend just step away from the music. So now, when learning 6 or 8, I would practice stopping the bow every 2 or 3 notes, or even 4 notes. So let's say I want to slur 6 notes per bow. So I'm going to organize it in 3 plus 3, okay? And also bow distribution. Let's talk about bow distribution. It's easy to get intimidated up there in the high positions and start using less bow. Please be mindful that even when it's scary, try to use the same amount of bow as you use at the beginning. Okay, so let's say I'm doing D major. So I stop in the middle, 3 and 3. And you can even put a small emphasis on the first note of each group, because then it gives you an idea of what it's going to be with the metronome. Same bow distribution. And so on. So you see, when in doubt, look at your contact point, especially in the high positions. We do have to get a little closer to the bridge there. Also, one other thing, especially when we start doing more, a really great way to practice this is to use rubber bands or hair ties and put them on your bow. I've seen some folks using butterfly clips and they're really cute, but you know, I have to say I'm scared they're going to make little dents in my precious bow. So I'm going to use these hair ties. They are, you know, you can use regular rubber bands too, but they've been very helpful to me to practice bow distribution. You can even use them in repertoire. And so you tie them up like this. So I'll show you. You put the entire thing in between the hair and the stick, and then you go like this, and then simply pull one in like this, put the loop through, and then you just get this to be, the loop to be on the top like this, and just pull to make it taut, and then slide to wherever you want it to be on the bow. So I'm going to put it somewhere here around the middle. Now let's say you want to practice 12 notes per bow. So, and then you're having trouble to keep track of 6 and 6. So what you can do is you can practice 12 notes per bow, either in 4 groups of 3 or in 3 groups of 4. So let's say you're doing 3, 3, 3, 3. So then you add 2 more ties and divide the bow into quarters. Okay, so here we go. 12 notes per bow, 3, 3, 3, and 3. It's going to be approximate, it's not going to be super exact, but this is a good way to kind of keep track of that bow distribution. Sometimes this problem happens. Just need to rotate this. So one more way to practice this is after you've done it 3, 3, 3, 3, or if you want to do 4, 4, 4, and divide the bow into 3 parts. The next step is when you do these groupings, so you're going to do each group a little faster. So maybe like da da da, ba ba bum, like that. So you do that a few times. Then the next thing you need to do is take each group and add 1 note to it. So I'm going to just practice it with, like, let's say in my case, 1 group of notes is 3 notes. So, and I'm feeling each 3 like this. So I'm going to practice landing the first note of the next group correctly. Like that. Then, so starting with the same note that I just finished with, I'm going to play the next group. So I'm going to repeat this note, D, and I'm going to do the next one. So I just practiced 2 groups with the next kind of downbeat, if you want to call it that. So by doing that, we're putting the groups together. So then I'm going to put these together. A little faster. Okay, and then, so starting from here, and then from here, this is the one with the shift. Oh, that was my mistake. The shift falls on a new bow direction in this case, because okay, so slur 12, in this case, the shift falls on the up bow. This is very useful to know. So now, okay, so that's how I would practice this. Now let's say I'm doing 16 per bow. So same idea, you have the bow divided into quarters. The only difference is now each one will be 4 notes, right? Because 16 divided by 4, right? So I'll practice the same way. First I'll do 4, stop, etc. Okay, so in this case, that's the final note. So, oh, okay, this is helpful information. The first note on the E string will be the up bow. This is actually slur 16. That's the one where in the middle of that up bow, you're gonna have that turnaround at the top. So when you finish the 3 octaves up, you're gonna start heading down, but you're still gonna be on that up bow. The next step, again, it was 1 group plus 1 note, so it'll be 5 notes. So I'll do it again, and now watch the bow a little more carefully this time. Repeat. Repeat. No, together. Okay, now the second half of this, starting from B. And now I'll try to put it all together. So as you can see, the bow distribution is not going to be super exact, but with practice it might get better, or you might find for your bow the best places to put these. Again, this is a great way to practice it. Then finally, we turn in the metronome. So instead of putting it on 40, which is what I did for the demo, I'm going to put it somewhere around there. So I'm going to tap. It's like 120. So same thing. There, I have to make sure that up bow was right. Then we do 9 notes. So 2 groups plus 1. Like that. And I try to put it all together. Okay, there we go. So you see it's more organized now than the first time I played it. Okay, so I'm going to take these off. And we're going to talk about, so that was bow distribution. We're going to talk about one more problem that I see in the left hand a lot. So when you're doing this grouping, it's really important that you're aware of the hand shape. So what I mean by that, does the hand look like this, like this, like this, like this? Where are the half steps? Be aware of where the half steps are going to be on each string. So in this case, on the D string, D major scale, I start off, of course, with D, E, F sharp. Da, 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 da. It's all whole steps, right? So my hand is in this formation. Then I know that on the D string, what is the pattern? It's all whole steps, okay? The augmented fourth instead of the normal standard perfect fourth, which the frame is normally kind of boxes in. Then this is where the shift is on the A string. The shift is, well, it's not on a half step going up, it is, if we do this fingering, that's a whole step shift. Then what happens here? We get this. That's the hand shape. So when you put notes together like this in a sprint, you can even, like if you want to challenge yourself and do it faster, you can turn off the metronome and just see how quickly you can play these groups that we did earlier. And so on. So the idea is when you get, especially after shifts, when you finish a shift or when you get to a new string, is to form the correct hand shape. That's a huge deal when practicing for acceleration. So that's one of the biggest reasons why it stops people from being able to go past a certain tempo. Also, on the very top, when you're doing it slowly, on the very last position, the last shift, please, guys, leave your fingers down, okay? Leave your fingers down. I know even in the minor scales, I know if we're doing minor scale, if we're doing the Galamian pattern, the fingering changes, but the notes are so close up here. Please, guys, keep your fingers down or extremely close, like even touching the string at least. Because otherwise we have to find them all over again and it just becomes really disorganized. So when you do it slowly, really pay attention to that. So for more detail about hand shapes and how to practice them, I actually talk a lot about it in my video on how to play fast passages in repertoire, and you can check it out in this link right over here. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend or a colleague. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I will see you in the next video.